Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you are listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom, as we welcome today The Lost Voice, with John Studi and Jacob Nelson.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lost Voice radio program. It's been a while, but this is your host, Jacob Nelson, along with your co-host, Jonathan Studi.
As you guys have probably already noted, I have been demoted to co-host since our last show. It's been a while.
The reason why we haven't had a show in like 6 weeks is
fault.
because I needed to make sure Studi knew his place. Trying to tell me that I was the guest host.
You're lucky I even invite you over here as you sit in my computer chair in my office.
Yeah.
You're drinking my water.
Part of the last 6 weeks was me renovating this place for you at a huge discount.
And you know, Jake?
So, there's that.
It looks great.
Thank you.
It is. It's bright and shiny.
We can see each other now.
We can, which was part of the reason why I continued to do the show. But now
Yeah,
that I see we truly do have the radio face.
That's right. We both have faces for radio, and barely that.
No, what was I going to say? Actually, love these lights. I got some LED, what do you call it? Recessed lighting.
Recessed lighting.
Yeah. Very bright.
Drop ceiling.
Wonderful drop ceiling. It's been great. Before it was really dark down here. And yellow, which, it's just an ugly color.
It was kind of a basement that, you know...
You murder people in.
Well, I wouldn't murder people in it, but in a scary movie, maybe. I never felt comfortable coming down here.
Never mind, to be honest. This basement's been weird. Not as bad as my basement at home, though.
Isn't this your home?
I mean, holy cow. I've been out of my house for my parents' house for 10 years. My parents' basement was very spooky. It was mostly unfinished for most of my entire childhood, and so it was echoey, and you would hear things. A house would shift, it would drip, and of course my bedroom was down there.
That explains so much of why you are the way you are.
About why it seems like I was raised in a dungeon, because I was.
Yeah, I mean, I can almost see entirely through you at this point. Like, you're so ghost white.
Ain't that the pot killing the kettle black? To
The difference, though, is in the summer, I turn nice olive greenish brown, and you turn purple.
Yeah, but purple is a much more it's a unique color, and it's much brighter in terms of its personality than olive tone. I mean, other people turn olive tone.
It's also the color of mourning and lament and penance.
Yeah, that's what most people do when
they spend time with you.
Oh, so it's not the sun that does that. It's actually being with me. Got it. Wait, right. Purple. Got it. That's what it was. So I talk about olive. I'm like, that's kind of weird, Jake.
See, when I'm with you in the summer, it reminds me that I need to be penitential. And so I spend more time with you in the summer.
Which is why I get sunburned, because I know that the penitential acts that you're going to commit, which sounds like you're doing some sort of crime.
The penitential acts.
More.
We need to make that.
A penitential act?
Yeah. Axe. We need a penitential axe.
It's kind of like the punishment volcano. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Okay, I don't know. I think it's on
I have not.
It's one of the radio shows here, and what they'll do in Minnesota, is they'll recount a crime that's happened recently.
Yeah.
And then the hosts vote on whether or not they go into the... Oh, it's a disciplined volcano. And and if the person has said something just completely heinous, they'll play a clip of them being thrown into a volcano.
Perfect.
As their discipline.
Sounds good to me.
I know. I mean,
but I think it's more fitting on our show to have a penance axe. Or a penitential axe. That's what we called it.
How do we do this? We can make this a segment, Penitential axe.
I think, this actually plays into what we were going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about current events and the way people abuse philosophy for, stupid ends that they really don't understand what they're doing. And I think our penitential axe, we should get a sounder of an axe swoosh and thud,
Why don't we actually go on actually?
Axe.
I've got some firewood to chop.
I have an axe at home.
It appears we are in an impasse.
It's like peanut butter and jelly, or chocolate and peanut butter. We're just made to be together, Stu.
To have accidental collisions where suddenly our product is delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Mafood, every single time he introduces our show, he does call it the dulcet sounds of Lost Voice. Dulcet coming from a Latin word that he said
Sweet.
Sweet,
Yeah.
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 Right, Lisa? Don't judge us. Don't judge us.
Our resident linguist in the audience.
Yes. All the languages.
No, but the penitential acts plays into this where, like, if we call out stupidity within somebody's philosophical endeavors, we can play the axe sounder.
We can.
Yeah.
We can.
This reminds me of on a radio show I like to listen to every year during March Madness, the big college basketball tournament, which I don't care about March Madness, but they do the preposterous statement tournament. And they gather preposterous statements from throughout the year, and then listeners vote on preposterous statements. It's hilarious. But then they've had to
maybe we should find some of those clips we had to cut out.
Those weren't preposterous. Those are wonderful. Sometimes we do edit here on the Lost Voice radio program because of,
Mishaps.
we get a little unhinged sometimes.
Technical difficulties.
Well, no, they're technical gloriousness things.
That we don't want to be publicly recognized for.
There is that. We have jobs to maintain after all. Man, I wish this was our full-time job.
I do. Listeners, if you want to send us both at least $50,000, $60,000 a piece, we'd be appreciative.
Then
We'd send you a fruit basket.
Could you imagine doing this full-time and, I mean, we're
Could
both
I?
fans
Yes.
of
Yes,
Ben
every
Shapiro, Steven Crowder, some of these talk show hosts that have kind of ventured out and done their own multimedia service. And we have great Catholic media services out there. Relevant Radio is a big one. EWTN is great. But I've yet to really come across a good Catholic radio service or TV service that really deals with current events. Like, there's the World Report and there's some other things out there, but there's not really I guess what I'm getting at is they do a good job with portraying the news and reporting the news, but there's not really the commentary to go with it.
Sure. From a Catholic point of view.
Yeah.
And with the, personality behind it and everything. So that's one of the bigger issues here.
Well, we have the Catholic point of view. I don't know if we have the personality for it.
Well, that's the thing is that...
But I would sure like to try.
What we're missing that Ben Shapiro and Dave... And what's his name? What, Crowder?
Steve Crowder.
Steven
Crowder.
have is personality, intelligence, and talent.
Yeah, we don't have any of those. Maybe combined we have one of them. I'm not sure which.
At least part of one.
Yeah.
Which... Not sure how that works.
Yeah, I don't know either.
If you guys haven't tuned out already, thank you.
Yes. And thanks for
I
coming
tuned out
back.
a while ago.
I know
Yeah,
it was
it's
an unexpected
wonderful.
hiatus, but
important.
been some big life changes in the midst of the last 6 weeks. And a lot of that time off was spent renovating the basement to get it ready for your family.
Yep.
The studio. So
My wife and I actually can't go into details because it's kind of a sensitive issue, but my wife and I recently adopted 2 little girls, 4 and 5 years old. Really, really sweet kids. It's an around-the-clock job because they're, they've been in the foster care system for a while.
yeah.
Can't go too deep into it, but just continue. Keep us in your prayers, please.
Yeah, so I mean, there's that, and then getting ready for them was really cleaning
huge.
up the basement, making it not a kill basement, making it nice for them to be around, and where they're not going to get lost in some weird hole in Narnia.
Speaking of which,
Yes,
that's actually one of my next big projects.
I know. You want to make it like a castle under your stairs.
Oh, absolutely. Don't you? Then we can have a radio show in there.
I mean, there is a spot
We can
under the stairs in my condo unit, but
No,
it's just
right
water
here.
coming.
No, but when we come here, then we can broadcast from the Lost Voice Castle.
That'd be pretty great.
It would be, actually.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about this.
You know what we should do at some point is,
What's
and
that?
I don't know if Dr. Mafood has the software to support this, but doing a webcam show
I've been thinking about that.
would be great.
Well, you can do the same thing. I mean, I think Dr. Mafood just feeds us through free conference call.
Is that how he does it?
Yeah, 100% sure. Because that's how if we do a live show, when we do live shows.
Well, a live show, I know.
Yeah, and so he
Yeah.
does the same thing, except he records it.
Oh.
Now you guys know all the...
That's
The
pulling.
dirty
That's
details.
pulling the veil back, so to speak.
Boy, you guys are getting a
We
treat
gotta.
for
We
returning
gotta.
episode here.
The curtain's got to go back in place. None of you know anything of what we just said.
Nope.
Anyway, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to catch up a little bit, touch base with each other, update the audience because I'm sure they care a lot about,
talk about our feelings.
the inner work, the inner workings of our lives. But we wanted to talk about some current events, and I know we were in the middle of going through the philosophical underpinnings of sacraments, and we didn't get through all of the sacraments before we had to take our little hiatus. But I thought, and it sounded like you agree, that it'd be really good to come back to the show and talk about some current events over the last 6 weeks, because there is a lot that's been going on in our culture. There's been a lot going on in the political forum. There's been a lot around the world happening. And again, there's Catholic reporting. There's not necessarily Catholic commentary going on a regular basis. And so I really wanted to touch base on some of the things going on. And I think one of the main ones right now, and it's important to me, is the whole arguments around the Second Amendment. It's a really important amendment within our Constitution to really understand and to wrap our heads around. What does it mean that that's a natural right for man? What does that mean in the Catholic perspective? Because it's not like God said, let there be man, let there be woman, and by the way, there's an AR-15 next to you. It's not natural in that sense, but I think there is something implicitly natural about having the right to bear weapons for self-defense. So I think that's something that'd be really important to get into philosophically, and maybe even touching within theologically of what it means to be human. So I thought that was an important one, especially because there's so much hate and vitriol within the public discourse that I don't want to go down that road. I really want to unpack what it means to support the Second Amendment as a Catholic.
I think it's a fantastic idea. As somebody who's been spending years in martial arts training, which I have taken a break from, and was hoping to go back today.
Yeah.
But
And I've spent years in firearms training. Not as intense as your martial arts training, but...
I mean, you still have your skin.
Firearms.
You heard it here first.
I know all of you missed the show as much as I have. Anyway, go on, Studi.
Why?
I picture my wife right now, if she's listening, shaking her head.
Pretty sure all of our listeners like,
love
"Is it groan?"
you,
Do
honey.
you have a groan noise?
No,
Man, we gotta get a better soundboard
we do.
someday.
I really want to. If we had the money, I would love to get like a.
We should get a Patreon.
What's that? A Patreon?
Oh my gosh, how disconnected are you?
I'm very disconnected purposely.
It's kind of like a Kickstarter, except that you grab your fans. So if you have fans, then your fans will support you for your whatever project you're working on.
Huh.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. What I would like to get through, maybe through Patreon, who knows, is a button bar where you can upload the sounds just onto the buttons, and you press the button and it makes a sound. That way you don't have to go
Scroll through it all. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's what real radio shows have.
Well, I mean, maybe it's like video games. You could press the F4 button or whatever, or number
Right.
4, 5, or F, and then it can do a different action.
Yeah.
Like walk forward and then load your weapon, or change to some sort of grenade.
Which is kind of like loading a weapon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oi.
Oi.
Oy vey. All right, well, in any case here, Jake. I'm sorry, where are we going with this? Kidding, of course. Yeah, these... When I heard about the news of the shooting, what was it, in Arizona, right? I wasn't even aware of...
Shooting in Arizona.
Wasn't it Arizona? The one that was in the school in Arizona?
No, that was Florida.
Florida? That was Florida?
Yeah.
I thought there was another one where it was...
Oh, I think there was another really small one in the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either case, there was the one where there was a boy. There was two. Yeah, this was the smaller one the last few weeks I was talking about here.
Okay.
The one where the boy who was he was convinced that he was going to be the greatest mass shooter in history.
Oh yeah.
There was that one. That was incredible to me. That he would actually sit and plan that and do the research and think through all of that at his young age, and especially going to an elementary school. When I have kids that age now too. I mean, before it was absolutely horrifying to even think about that.
Right.
But now to understand that I have children in the school.
Well, and one thing I would like to point out with that is that you know his reason why he chose the target he chose?
Why is that?
Specifically because he knew it was a soft target. There'd be no resistance.
Yep. Coward.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you're going for a record.
But also it says something that people who are unhinged still have the intellect to find the path of least resistance.
Right.
And that if we're really serious about protecting our schools and our children, and not just schools and children, but, you know, important places where people congregate, we need to take the idea of security seriously. Mm-hmm. Because one of the common themes throughout all of the last handful of shootings is that our system, our governmental system, has failed. With the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting in Florida, the FBI had been contacted multiple times. The sheriff had visited this person over 40 times. There was plenty of opportunity to intervene before this individual went to the high school and did what he did.
Yep.
With the shooting in, I forget the name of the town, but in Texas when the church got shot up about a year ago. That individual had been dishonorably discharged from the Air Force for domestic battery, and as such, he should have never been able to get a gun. But the problem was the Air Force never communicated to the FBI that this was the case. So when the background check was run, it gets run through the FBI, and the FBI didn't have the necessary information that the Air Force failed to give. And if you go through all of these shootings in the past, half decade, it's governmental issues or governmental things that have failed the people. And this is precisely why the Second Amendment is there. It's not that people who support the Second Amendment necessarily think the government is out to get them, because that's often how it's portrayed in the media.
Sure.
It's that we realize that the government we have is the best of the worst solutions of government. A republic, a representative republic, such as we have, is the best of the worst solutions. And St. Augustine even talked about democracy and said it's great until people don't have virtue, and then you need a few virtuous men to rise up and to run the government. It's no longer democracy at that point because you have unvirtuous people, you have vicious people voting in vicious people to give them more vice. Mm-hmm. You need virtuous men and women to stand up then. And so the Second Amendment isn't there to protect us against the uprising of a government out to get us, though that is possible. It could happen, and the Second Amendment is certainly there to protect against that too. But primarily, it's for us to understand that the Second Amendment is really there to protect us for when the government fails. It's much more likely that our human government, established by humans, run by humans, for humans, it's much more likely that will simply fail than it is that government will outrightly attack us.
Right.
In either case, we, the people, do have a right to then protect ourselves.
Right, and a duty to protect ourselves.
Right, and it's, they say, well, opponents will say, well, why don't you just call the police? Well, when seconds matter, police are minutes away.
Yep. Here in Minnesota, I just recently had my burglar alarm go off at here in Crystal, Minnesota, and the alarm company called me and they asked for my permission to dispatch, and it took the police a half an hour to get here.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm. Because they dispatched and then they came and inspected. They came, called me up, and then I missed the phone call, but then they left a message saying that they were going in. But then when I called the company back, they didn't find anything that was going on in my house. My dog probably knocked something over or whatever.
Yeah,
she does that kind of stuff all the time. But 30 minutes. So let's say I'm at night. It's nighttime, and my somebody breaks into my house. Alarm goes off. The alarm company calls me twice and my wife twice.
Yeah.
It doesn't get they don't get a response, and then they'll automatically send something out. And so first, that's 2 calls. Second, that's 4 calls that they need to do. Will probably take like 4 or 5 minutes.
Right.
And then they have to actually call the police, tell the police that something's going on. And so by the time all that's taken care of and the police actually arrive at my house, 40 minutes have gone by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the average, I think, so
it's the average is 9 minutes here in Crystal, actually.
Okay, I thought it was 6, but regardless, if there's, the police have a priority list, and if there's a break and you're not answering, your wife's not answering, you might get moved up the priority list. But even if we went by the average 6 minutes or 9 minutes that it takes police to get somewhere, that's plenty of time for a burglar or somebody to get in, do their crime, and get out and be gone in the shadows of the night.
Yeah, right. No,
that's
There used to be a show. Used to be a show called what was it? How to Catch a Thief.
Okay,
I think it was called.
Yeah.
And what they would do is they'd find somebody who their family would report to them as having very poor safety protocols in their home, leaving things unlocked, leaving the front door open, leaving the windows open to cool the house down or whatever, and they'd be in and out in no time.
Right.
They'd go straight in. They knew exactly where people would typically keep their valuables. They'd take computers, TVs. Doesn't take that long to just grab a TV off the wall and start heading out.
Right.
Especially if you got a little power drill and you take off the mount too, you're out in just a couple minutes with that $500 machine. But even though what I was saying before with 30-minute time window, the period of time between phoning the police in a serious emergency situation and them arriving, 6 to 9 minutes, whatever it might be here.
Right.
So I thought it was 9 minutes, but regardless, the average fight lasts 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's the median. Which means that if there's a physical confrontation of some sort, it's done and over with well before the police are there. And so
before the police are even really contacted.
Yeah, before they're even contacted. Yeah, that's even the worst part. And so if I get up and confront somebody, it's up to me in that 15 seconds to make sure that I'm effective enough with my whatever it is, whether it be martial arts or a gun, or a weapon of another sort, to make sure that my family is adequately protected. But the difficulty is, what if that person has a weapon? What if that person has what if there's more than one person there?
Right.
I'm not a bad fighter. I'm a little bit out of practice, but and I'm sure I could be fine with just your average individual. And most people, 1-on-1, but 2-on-1, that's going to be really tough.
Yeah,
not going to happen. And especially if I have, I have kids in my house and my wife. My wife is, she may be tenacious and she's going to do what she needs to do, but she has no training and she's really small. That's not something I want to have to face down.
Right.
If somebody breaks into my house, I want to put them down right away.
Right. Well, and I think our language needs to better reflect reality. Police, I have the utmost respect for police, first responders, as they're called. But the reality is, in your house, they are not the first responders. You are.
Exactly.
And as individual persons, we have a natural, God-given right for self-preservation. And that's really the root that the Second Amendment gets at, is that we have an implicit right for self-preservation that is not reserved to the government, but reserved to us as individuals. And that's something that we have a right to hold dear, to defend, and to live out. And in the modern day, we have tools for that: guns, knives, other things, mace, right, tasers. In the non-modern day, if we go in our Wayback Machine, there's other things. There's maces, not mace, maces, daggers, swords,
Which I have one,
arrows.
by the way.
Do you have a mace?
It's a flail, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's a skull flail, though. It's really cool.
And if we go in the way back machine, there's sticks with arrowheads on them.
Or if we're going the behind me machine, we have a board with a nail through it.
Right. Right. But at all times in human history, man has exercised the right of self-preservation. That's a natural right. It's part of our nature to desire to be preserved.
And it's a major part of the reason why we've been able to develop the mind that we have. If you want to, take the evolutionary route,
Right.
Instead of growing claws or teeth or big teeth or armor,
We have
or whatever,
intellects.
We have intellects, and we create something. We put two things together.
We manipulate things into tools.
Whether they be people or whether they
I was just looking at you of how I can make a joke about manipulating you into a tool.
I tell you, though, kids are manipulative.
They can be.
Michael, you guys can't see this, so I'm going to describe it to you. So one of the things, he likes to avoid going to bed and put it off as much as he possibly can. He was doing that tonight when Jake came over. And he said, I want to see Uncle Jake. And then he'd go down and he was really shy. But one of his most famous tactics, and by famous I mean between Molly and I, that's infamous, is he'll say, I want a teeny tiny snack, and he'll get this big grin with his big blue eyes, and he'll put his finger on his cheek, on his little dimple, and twist his finger around on it and say, a teeny tiny snack, or a teeny tiny milk. And it's really cute, and it's funny, but I know what he's doing, because he's trying so hard. And normally, I'll give him a teeny tiny bit of milk, it's fine, no big deal. But my daughter did the same thing earlier today. She was asking me something, which I had no intention of withholding from her. I don't remember what it was exactly, but she gave me this really sad daddy eyes, like, "Oh, Daddy, I'm so sad, and I'm broken here, and you need to fix this. Please rescue me." Kind of a look, and I'm just thinking, kid, come on. So even children, they know what they need to do in order to get what they need, and we as grown-ups.
Ow! Why'd you hit my knee? That's my bad knee.
I'm sorry, I was trying to test your reflexes.
Both my knees are bad, by the way.
No reflex. That was horrible, Jake.
Both my knees are bad.
I'm sorry.
I'm broken.
That's okay. We're all broken a little bit, Jake. And I was just telling a kid story. It was great. I love my children. It's so much fun.
Did you forget where you're going with that?
No, I know where we're going with that.
Oh, okay.
I want to tell a kid story. I want to tell everybody about Michael's teeny tiny little thing. It's so obnoxious. It drives me nuts. Whenever he goes to bed, the charm just comes out, and he's adorable, and he's laughing, and he's big fat cheeks that are grinning from ear to ear.
Speaking of fat cheeks, my son, who has very fat cheeks.
He does, but not like freaking Wesley. I mean...
Whitley?
Why do I keep calling him Wesley?
I'm going to send the show to Balin just so she can hear you mispronounce his name again.
It's not my fault.
But,
Never mind. I'm going to stop right there.
Matthias is, he's almost 7 months. He'll be 7 months this week. And he's like 22 pounds. So he's almost your son's weight, who's almost 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a big boy. And he's...
Like teeny tiny.
Matthias, when he's overtired, he doesn't cry like most babies. He starts laughing. And like laughing to the point where he can't breathe. It's hilarious. I love it.
One of my kids. I love her. I've really, gotten attached to her.
Yeah.
Crazy affectionate. Mm-hmm. Hugs and kisses, and she she gave me a kiss she gave me a hug not long ago that cracked my neck. It was so tight. As she was saying, "Daddy, I love you so much."
Wow.
But the same girl, when I don't know what it is, but when she's the mood strikes her, she starts saying no, and starts sticking her tongue out, and starts like shaking her butt at me or whatever, and like talking, calling me poopy head or whatever it might be. And then she loses a security blanket. She loses a toy.
I mean, she's accurate with the poopy head thing.
Yes, but she doesn't need to know that. She doesn't need to know that. Then she looks at me, and then she starts losing more stuff. And I come over, and I say, "All right, kiddo, we're going to take a time in. I'll scoop her up, and I'll hold her until she's done." And not to get too deeply into details, but one of the things that she does is she starts screeching like a banshee, but then she starts looking at me laughing. It's like, as she's getting in more and more trouble, down to the point where she's losing the most precious objects in her life, she looks at me and laughs hysterically about, "I don't understand that. Only a crazy person would do that." But She's a preschooler. She is insane. They're all like this. Sometimes when she's tired or low blood sugar.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Family.
she's still trying to manipulate us. She
Yeah.
turned me into a tool, and she's trying to defend herself. Well, I'm trying to defend myself from her biting me.
Yeah. Well, there's that.
yes.
As they say.
But anyway, no, we do have a right to defend ourselves, and like I was saying, it's a duty to defend ourselves,
Right.
Because especially when
We hold life as precious.
yes, absolutely.
If we didn't hold life as precious, then there would be no need to defend ourselves.
well, it's not even just our life. And yes, it is.
but
our
it's life in general.
It's life in
Yeah.
general. Period. It's something that we need to protect, and it's not just life per se. I mean, a person breaks into our house and they're coming in to steal our social security number. They're coming in to steal our credit cards. They could ruin us financially for a very long
Right.
time. Or our computers, they can go and do some sort of illegal activity, and they get connected to us, and then we lose our job, we lose our credibility. Something gets out there gets reported. I mean, I've heard of people who they've there was a guy who at his work there was a virus that went onto his computer from somebody else using it, and they didn't find out who, but it was downloading just oodles and oodles of child pornography.
Oh,
And
that's
he got-
awful.
I know, and he got caught, quote unquote, for it because they noticed the incredible amount of bandwidth that his computer was using. When they found it, they picked it up and they looked at it, and he was in court, and they already found out right away that it was a virus, but it still nonetheless took him 10 years
Oh my goodness!
to get past all the court battles that he had to go through.
Wow.
And in that time, lost his family,
Lost everything. Yeah. Wow.
because of a computer virus. And so, I mean, if somebody's breaking into your home or they're doing something like that, there's a whole lot of things in your life
Right.
that could be at risk.
Right.
And so those are things that you need to.
Well, then not to mention, if you lose your family, lose your kids are going to be affected by that too. It's
absolutely.
not, and so our lives they're intertwined with the lives of all those around us, and that's the beauty of humanity. But it's also part of the difficulty of humanity too, because there are so many different worldviews out there, and currently right now with the dictatorship of relativism. Everybody is necessarily an enemy of everybody else if everybody's defining their own moral good, and so we get into these debates, and this happened. Oh gosh, where was it? It was obviously in California.
Which, by the way, despite their socialist agenda and socialist promises of a utopia, they have the lowest quality of life in the entire
Yeah, I
country.
just saw that report. That was a little
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Worse than New Jersey. And if you ever watch a TV show, New Jersey's like basically a crap hole.
Right.
But the reason for that is because most people who make TV shows are from New York.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people anyway. And
Right.
I'm sorry.
But think about just the natural advantage California has for happiness. The sun, the mountains, the ocean,
Yes.
everything else. And yet they've found a way to completely ruin it.
So sad.
And I've been to Northern California. I actually got a job offer there once, and I almost left, and that made you cry at the very thought of it.
Oh, I was. Well, Justin had just left like a month prior.
Yeah. I didn't take it, though.
And I cried for 3 days
Yeah.
with him.
How long
You
would you
gave
have
that
cried if I left?
I'd still be crying. We'd have a new Atlantic.
And this is what, like 4 years later?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
Can't keep-
anyway, what's the university in California that's like the quote unquote nexus of free speech? University of Berkeley.
UCLA? Or
Berkeley.
Berkeley. Oh, that's a disaster.
Berkeley is a disaster, and it was I don't know, last year, 2017, sometime that there are all these debates because I think Milo
Yiannopoulos.
was
Oh,
going there.
that one. And Ben Shapiro. I love
And
Ben
Ben-
Shapiro's line.
So,
go on.
so there are all these protests there, and leftists burning the place down. They cost the school like hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. You know what their explanation was of why they could justify that?
No idea.
that words are violence.
Oh, that's right.
And
yeah.
because words are violence, I can be physically violent to those who speak out against me.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Because
I mean,
they say
come on.
words are the root of violence.
So they're preemptively attacked. I mean, it's just
It's a
ridiculous.
preemptive strike to something that's not even... That's not
You know, and so this gets back to the dictatorship of relativism. When we determine for ourselves what is good and evil, and we start messing with terminology, when we start messing with factual things and altering facts with our opinion, then everybody does become an enemy of everybody else. And you can then come up with these idiotic ideas that speech is violence. I'm not that old. I'm 29. But when I was growing up,
I'm older than you?
yeah, we talk about this all the time.
I know.
But when I was growing up, even, 20 years ago, not that long
When
ago.
we were 9.
Right. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. How soft have we gotten? My goodness, just makes me want to drink.
Good.
Water.
This is actually something
Jameson.
we often drink alcohol, and I think our shows are better when we drink alcohol.
In moderation, always in moderation.
Always in moderation, and always to the point of hilarity, because St. Thomas Aquinas said that's the best state of mind.
That's right.
And who are we to disagree with? The universal doctor. He is a doctor after
And-
all, and you need to follow your doctor's advice with respect to health issues.
That's right. And St. John Chrysostom spoke out greatly against teetotalers, saying
And-
that teetotalism was offensive to God.
Yes, because if you totally drink tea, you need to push in the face.
You're on a roll tonight.
I am a roll with a really...
You should be a French baker.
I'm 3 times a dad now than it was in the last show. I got 3 times the dad shows. I tell you, though, it's so funny. What?
Studi.
What?
That reminds me.
Okay. What are we talking about today? Do we even have a
All
topic?
kinds of things. But I went to the doctor the other day.
Okay, so did I. It was a disaster.
Well, mine was too. They found something. They found a crack in my butt.
No!
Best dad joke I've ever heard.
I told it to my brother
Did you really?
years ago. My son, I don't know why. Sorry, Matt, I'm throwing you under the bus. He was like butt naked. And his blanket came out, he was laying down, and woke him up for some reason. It was still we were at a parents' house, and he had some drinks the night before, so he was really hot. And okay, hold on. And I see him, and I say, "Hey, Matt, I think you're broken. There's a big crack in your butt. Would you like some more?"
No, I'm.
Oh, in any case, children, emotions, gun control, violence.
This is just it's a
soft
freewheeling
people.
discussion.
It is a freewheeling discussion for freewheeling people like us. Hopefully, I can keep my articulation.
You look like you need some sleep.
No, I will tell you after the show.
This is like the craziest I've ever seen you look.
Jake. Is it because I have a tick where I'm pulling my hair out
Yeah,
and my hair gets all floofy?
it is actually.
Oh, I gotta comb my hair every once in a while. Okay, so I was telling my wife just not too long ago that I want to start making a routine of lifting weights downstairs and buying Michaels with PVC pipes. And of course, some like sort of circle, like
Yeah.
either whether it be wood or
Right.
plastic, or writing 100 on it. So Michael's like lifting 100-pound weights, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was telling her, I don't want my son to be soft.
Mm.
Because right now we do live in a generation of soft people.
Yeah.
And including myself, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of things that
You
I'm
are soft. Should
soft
go on a
and
diet.
cuddly. I lost 35
I know, you actually look
pounds.
really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And having 2 daughters is hilarious too, because they'll like comb my hair and put the fake
Nice.
blow dryer on me and say, "No, you're beautiful, Dad." I'm like, "Great."
And I wasn't before.
And then, or was it? And then they said, I told Molly, "Oh, we'll do your hair, and you'll have beautiful hair. Wasn't it beautiful before?" No.
No.
It's so funny. This is my favorite one. And then I'll get back to my story, my
Okay.
point about soft people.
Yeah.
The first time when they met our priests at St. Rave's, they go up to Father Altier, right? And they're like, "What's that?" "Oh, my glasses." "No, the thing next to it." "Well, that's a mole." And then they point out every single
Yeah.
flaw in their face. And then
Oh,
then the
man.
deacon, he's from He's from I think he's from West Africa.
Okay.
And so he's got some of the West African features, including a wider nose.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Why is your nose so big?" That's the first thing they say to this guy. Not even "What's your name?" or "Hello, how are you?" It's "Why is your nose so big?" And he handled it well. He said, "Because I'm a big guy." He's not even that big.
Yeah.
And then my boss, not the priest, but
Right, yeah.
he got hit in the face by a baseball.
Ooh.
And so he had to have his teeth, put back in. They're a little crooked. And I said, "Why are your teeth like that?" It's like, holy cow, kids!
So,
But-
I would like to point out that they've never actually asked me anything about my appearance, so that must mean I just look perfect.
Or they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, or I look so bad that they...
Like the beginning of their empathy.
Yeah. I'm glad I could
Little
aid you in
tiny
that.
feet.
Yeah.
But no, that's a
Generation of softness.
Generation of softness, which is exactly what I was about to speak
Yep.
on. We have a generation of softness, and that was because we were raised in a self-esteem movement. Everybody would get a prize during T-ball. Don't lose that, by the way.
This bouncy
Because
ball?
I got to give that back to one of my kids, who was totally distraught by the fact that she lost it earlier today.
So if I want to make your life horrible, I should lose it.
Well, if you do lose it, and I tell her she lost it, then I'll feel like I'm needed, because she'll come to me crying, and I'll give her a big hug.
Okay.
But don't do it, because that's sadistic.
Yeah, it's true.
Are you thinking about throwing it up in the ceiling?
No, I'm thinking about how terrible your electrical work was before I fixed it.
So bad. So we grew up in the self-esteem movement where everybody told you're special. There's something unique about you. You are you're the best at something. You remember cartoon shows? I remember watching Hey Arnold, and everybody had like this secret special talent that they were the best at. Nobody was
remember
better.
that.
You never watched Hey Arnold?
Oh, I always watched it. I don't remember that, though.
What was that tall, ugly kid? What was his name?
I don't know.
He had the nose. Anyway,
Was he like the bigger kid?
no, that was Harold.
Yeah.
He was the fat Jewish kid, who, for
Right.
whatever reason, stole a ham one day when he was working in the butcher shop. And that's one of the shows I remember most distinctly, is he had to go back and work for the butcher. And the butcher was really annoyed by him, but then Harold, anyway. So there was this one kid who was a bit slow, largely talentless, except for the fact that he was better than anybody else at rolling a sleeping bag. And it played him
I can't remember that now.
because they were trying to beat a world record. All right? And they were
and they made a pizza
puff.
That's right.
And so he rolled the crust on the pizza puff, and of course it exploded.
You want to know why this is not realistic? Is that it's called a calzone. It's not a pizza puff.
I love calzone.
All right?
I really want
Donatelli's
right
in White Bear
now.
Lake.
Will you go buy me a calzone after
Well,
this show?
That's like half an hour away. And they're
No.
probably
We don't have to
closed.
go there. We can go to
No, we
what's that
gotta
place?
go to Donatelli's once and get a calzone. They're fantastic.
All right,
Anyway,
let's
moving
get to it.
on.
Anyway, so that's what we were raised on. That we're always special.
Right.
We have always got something unique about us that's better than anybody else.
And do you remember
Fact
that the whole controversy about using red pens to correct papers?
Okay, not gonna lie.
That red pens drop students' self-esteem, so we need to use other colors. Like, well, how stupid is that? Once they start getting bad marks in another color, they're going to associate bad marks with that color.
That's where you just gotta draw happy faces and use the sandwich technique.
Yeah.
I've
Put
actually
your name on the paper, you got everything wrong, and you're a terrible student, but you at least got a score.
So my wife.
Does she use the sandwich technique on you?
No. Well, and that's by sandwich you mean between crushing me under stones of criticism in the ground. And I'm the dead man sandwich.
I really hope she hears this and comes down to the recording.
Oh, I tell her
and
this
yells
all
at
the
you.
time. I had her correct one of my papers once when I was at the Augusta Institute. I think she's just upstairs making a sandwich or something. I don't know what she's making. So I just assumed sandwich. But she used a red pen. And she's an English major, creative writing, really.
Yeah.
And she's a grammar Nazi. Mm-hmm. Me, on the other hand, I barely speak English, let alone write it. And I actually had to learn how to write an essay during grad school.
Yeah. That's because you slacked off through all high school.
I totally slacked off from in all high school, despite. Never mind. Not even moving on. Anyway, so I learned how to do it. And so for instance, the very first paper that I ever wrote for grad school was my entrance exam to the Institute for Pastoral Theology through Ave Maria. And Dr. Herman calls me back confused, saying, you wrote a really good paper, but we don't understand the structure. And so I explained it to him. And basically what I did was I wrote an inclusio. which is actually a literary trope that's from the Greek and the Hebraic from biblical literature.
Yeah.
And then when I explained that to them, they're like, "Oh, that's genius." And then the next, what's his name, Bushman, wrote me back. He's not a father. I mean, he is a father, but not that kind of father. He wrote me back saying that it was excellent that I had done that, but I had no idea because I talked to my wife later. She says, "Why didn't you use a 5-paragraph essay form?" I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so she taught me how to do it. Anyway, so I no grammar whatsoever. Anyway, so she gets it. Writes things down, and then everything is marked up in red. There's circles, there's comments, there's like tons of commas, and as she's explaining to me, all I hear from her is she says, "You see this comma right here? You put this comma here because you're worthless and you have no meaning to your life." One of those are actual words that she said or not, that's all I heard. But it's true. I mean, and that's
Wait,
part of
that you're worthless and there's no meaning to your life?
Yes!
You're really mean to yourself.
I know. Well, I mean, that's actually what hurt her, because even still, and this is a bit of confession right now. I'm pulling...
I can hear it, I just can't absolve you.
You can do the thing that Paul does, what you have, you can't give, or whatever. Or what you don't have, you can't give. I don't know, he used to say something in Latin that meant that. Paul, if you're listening right now, text me. We'll see. Paul being a seminarian friend of ours. Anyway. Confession time. My first class, salvation history. My final grade. I got an A- in the class, which I felt terrible about, an A-, because I prided myself on being somebody who knew the Bible very well. Former Protestant.
Yeah.
Taught a couple Bible studies, that kind of stuff. But the reason why I got an A- in the class was because I got a B+ on a paper. And I argued with my professor on it so much. And he had to, basically console me on a B+. I barely graduated high school. I should have been happy for a B+. But I put so much of my identity in the grade and in the affirmation and having people think highly of me that B+ totally ruined my self-esteem. Self-esteem, fine. But whatever. You don't want self-esteem. You want confidence. But confidence only comes through competence. And so you have to earn it. And that's much better at keeping you happy.
You sound
interesting.
You sound like a junior high motivational speaker.
That is literally what I do for my job here. What's interesting is you know who has the highest self-confidence?
Who?
Or self-esteem?
Who?
Convicts. Repeat, convicts. They have the highest self-esteem of any segment of the population.
Where's your citation for that?
I don't remember. I can find it.
Throwing stuff out there.
87%
of statistics are made up on the spot.
Yes. Thank you for finishing that sentence for me. But no, it's true though. I'll find it. I promise.
Find it. We'll bring it up next episode.
My karate teacher told me. No, we can find it.
We'll talk about it next episode.
Can we? Because we didn't talk about emotions. I wanted to talk about feelings.
Well, that's because you went on and on and on about your own upbringing. See,
I didn't talk about my own upbringing.
You're soft. I'm hard. I got B+ all the time. And it's because I didn't care. I actually taught my physics teacher in high school about physics that he didn't understand.
I didn't care in high school.
Bored.
I care in graduate school.
Right. But that carried over into graduate school. And it's like, well, I know this stuff well enough to be able to have a vibrant prayer life and help people understand the faith and all this stuff. I don't really care about the little nuances.
We have very different purposes. And very different purposes. True. You have orcas, I have dolphins. Why am I like this? Oh my goodness.
I don't know why you're sitting in the chair the way you're sitting.
I can ride side saddle if I want. Come on, Jake. It's my office. Where to record? Next to our castle.
Yes.
Our Lost Voice.
Anyway, we have 10 minutes left.
That's fine. Can we do 10 minutes of obligatory nonsense?
This whole show's been nonsense.
But Jake, we haven't had a show in 5 or 6 weeks, and so we need to have a whole hour of obligatory nonsense.
Well, I tried to throw a few interesting points and important things to talk about, like on the Second Amendment, and that didn't actually get any traction. I would like to hear your input on it.
I gave my input.
Not really.
Gun control is using both hands.
And hitting the target you're aiming at.
No, just both hands.
You know, the thing with...
Yes, actually.
Okay. There's one thing that's really driving me nuts with this whole gun control thing. And that's this insane push by the media, who has an agenda, to
I wish I had an agenda. I'd be much more organized.
have... to make experts out of the high schoolers.
Oh my gosh.
Which they're experts in their own feelings
part,
and
yes.
experiences.
I remember talking about this.
But they are not experts in
Yes.
public policy, public health, and gun control. They're not. They don't know the first thing about it. And the reality is, and actually, I really respect Steven Crowder for this, because he was interviewing a guy on a college campus about the Second Amendment, and he said, you know what, I really encourage you to go buy a firearm. You don't have to keep it. You could give it right back to the store. Whatever you want to do with it is fine. But go buy a firearm, and you will find it is one of the most difficult processes to go through. Because you have to have your ID. You know, they do check that it is your current address. You go through a federal database background check. It is not just walking in and getting a gun. And yet CNN ran a news story not long ago where this reporter said he went and got a gun. It was the easiest thing he ever did, and he didn't need a background check, all this stuff. Well, as it turns out, he never actually bought the gun. He went in, he said he wanted to buy the gun. The store owner, or the guy helping, said, okay, you need to do a background check, you need a license, all this stuff. And at that point, the guy stopped trying to buy the gun.
Right. And then
the news story came out. I tried to buy a gun. They never ran a background check. Anybody can walk in and say they want to buy a gun.
I'm dizzy. So dizzy. You know what I'm dizzy from?
What?
The Spin.
Yeah.
Another dad joke.
Yep.
Brought to you by Studi.
So, I mean, there's all this misinformation out there, and I guess for me, I enjoy watching Steven Crowder, and I do enjoy Ben Shapiro, though I think he does get a little bit harsh at times, like unnecessarily harsh at times. But he's very brilliant, and he's got a lot of good points, as does Steven Crowder. But I think it's really important for us in our time to consider all of the facts, consider what it really means to own a firearm, why we own one, why we hold this right as something inalienable, why it's so important to be wary of the media at this point. And it wasn't until really the dawn of the 24-hour news cycle and the birth of CNN back in the 80s, I want to say that was, maybe early 90s, that news stopped being news and it started to be entertainment.
Yes, that's a problem.
And our current news system is more about entertainment than it is the news. There's the axiom, if it bleeds, it leads. And the reality is that whether we like it or not, whether the news media likes it or not, they want chaos leading their stories because that's what sells the most. That's what people tune in for. More people tuned in for coverage, nonstop coverage of 9/11 than probably anything else in modern history. You know, we don't tune in for nonstop media coverage of what happened in our local community because our news at the local level tends to report the news. But in order to fill 24 hours and make a profit, we need to sensationalize and create entertainment out of news stories. And with that comes spin, of course, but it comes with scripts. Entertainment is not something that just happens, it's something that's scripted. And these news shows, whether it's Hannity on Fox or Anderson Cooper on CNN or Rachel Maddow on MSNBC or any other.
I cannot stand her.
Yeah, I know.
She's like, she's just
Moving
straight up
on.
stupid, actually, but it's fine.
We're going to be civil on our show, Studi.
That's why I whispered it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
They might have heard you. I'm sure they did.
That's okay.
But, I mean, the reality is these people, they want to entertain. They're not newscasters. They're not Walter Cronkites. They're not, other famous news people from the past. They are entertainers. And the difficulty we have now is communicating to people that CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, if it's a 24-hour quote-unquote news channel, it is an entertainment channel, and it's entertainment through human depravity. And the sad thing is, it's entertainment, much like sitcoms or whatever else. The difference is, though, those are actors. Those are people that pretend for a living. Whereas on the 24-hour news cycle, it's entertainment based on the sad and difficult points of real people's lives. Mm-hmm. And how depraved are we as a culture and as a society to hold that up as our favorite entertainment? And it's our own fault, then, for making the news media as sensational as it is.
Because it is capitalistic.
It is.
Which is fine. Capitalism is great. And it's kind of like what you had said earlier about democracy and St. Augustine is that democracy is great as long as you have virtuous people.
Right.
But the second you have vicious people, then it's you get some serious issues. And I think it's the same thing. Once you have a vicious culture, then what sells are things that lead to vice or encourage vice or deepen it. And I think that we've actually come to that place where we are finding that the most successful genres of movies, modes of news broadcasting, modes and even in our colleges, they're not going to be things that lead to a virtuous life. They're not going to be things which point us in the right direction in terms of real human happiness. Mm-hmm. But rather, it's going to be what satisfies in terms of the apparent goods of our life.
Right.
And as such, when it comes to school shooters and other issues which are surrounding this gun debate issue that you wanted to talk more in depth about, I think that one of the bigger issues is not so much gun control as it is self-control,
right.
Not to do too much of a spin on words.
No, I know.
But rather to use it as a way of saying that what our real issue is a lack of virtue in our culture,
right.
A lack of virtue in the people who are obviously perpetrating the shootings. But if you look at the people who are perpetrating the shootings, they're always the outcasts, they're always loners, they're always
right.
people who feel, and feelings do matter, feel as if that there's nothing special about them. There's nothing unique. There's something that they need to do in order to earn approval or earn fame
or that they're greater than the rest of society.
They're greater than the rest of society, so that they can go ahead and do these things.
Right.
And so it's not teaching people. We are not teaching people their proper place in the order of creation and in the order of society, and that's only going to come through the growth of virtue.
Right, and this is the quote from Augustine is so interesting because democracy is the best form of government if you have virtuous people, because it's hard to turn many virtuous people into many vicious people. But if you have many vicious people, it's equally as hard, if not harder, to turn many vicious people into many virtuous people.
Oh, but vice is always easier.
And so when you have a monarchy, that is one good leader, one good king, or one good queen, that's actually a better form of government simply for the fact that you have the one good virtuous person. You don't have to change a whole system from vicious to virtuous in order to have the leadership of the nation be good. However, that one good person is more easily corruptible than a whole country of virtuous people. And so there's, the good and the bad of both kinds of government. Democracy isn't the only good form of government. There's other good forms. And all governments have the potential for good if the leaders are good.
Absolutely.
But that being said, all countries, all governments have the potential for evil, for vice, that sort of thing. And that's really the foundation of the Second Amendment is in case the government goes wayward or in case the government fails, which happens quite frequently, especially when our leadership, and say what you will about, the executive branch, the legislative branch, or the judicial branch, they all have issues. I don't like how vulgar President Trump is. I don't like how self-serving virtually all members of Congress are. I don't like how certain members of the Supreme Court have rewritten laws like Obamacare in order for them to be constitutional. That's actually strictly against the Constitution. The judiciary cannot rewrite laws. They can only judge whether the laws on the books are constitutional.
Yes.
And so we see the failure at every level of our government. There's, I would say, a good example of why we need self-preservation, why we shouldn't rely on government entities to protect us, at least in the domestic sense. Government should protect us from foreign things, but we need to take responsibility for our own well-being.
Right, because that's the proper role of government, is to take care of the common good.
Right.
Whereas we cannot. We need to take our material principle is, our families and our loved ones. And I'll know too, in terms of virtue, to rely on the government to protect us from everything, including with the police protecting us in our own home, which we should, also look to that as something that is necessary for the city or state to provide. It's our immediate duty to do that, to be virtuous enough and courageous enough to protect our families.
Right.
And if we think that the government's simply going to do it, all we're doing is putting responsibility on the shoulders of another.
Exactly.
It is not properly
well, with that, and perhaps next week we can continue the conversation, but with that we need to end the show.
Okay.
So, Studi, thank you for a rousing welcome back to the Lost Voice radio program, where we seek to rediscover the lost voice of wisdom. This is Jacob Nelson, along with John Studi, wishing you all a wonderful week in the Lord. Have a great week, and we will see you again next week.
Shalom,
thank you
my
all.
brothers.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.